Chapter 527 The Crown Prince. 10 shadows returned soundlessly 15 minutes later. The heavenly son Douluo was in the lead, and he was holding a bag as he immediately lowered his voice once he touched the ground and said, "Let's go. Radiant City has increased security across the entire city, so let's get out of here. You're back in command, Yuao." Who are Yuao could tell from the heavenly son Douluo's solemn expression that he knew about the body Douluo's death. He nodded, and immediately shared spiritual detection with everyone. The others didn't delay as they rose into the air and surged toward the sky. But Who are Yuao had just taken everyone into the air when a dumbfounded look appeared on his face. His spiritual power was incredibly sharp, and the first thing he had to do to share his spiritual detection was to cover everyone around him. There should be 16 people including the title Douluo, Tang Clan, and himself, because the body Douluo would be missing from their initial lineup. But when he brought everyone into the air, he could clearly hear a 17th heartbeat. There was another life form in the heavenly son Douluo's grasp. What is that? Who are Yuao subconsciously stretched his spiritual detection over, and the first thing he felt was a gentle but weak spiritual undulation. It was a world apart compared to those titled Douluo, but this gentle spiritual undulation made his heart tremble vigorously as an inexplicable sensation coursed over his entire body. The first thing that appeared in his spiritual detection was a small swaddling cloth, which contained a soundly sleeping infant. That heartbeat and spiritual undulation belonged to the infant, inside the Sun Moon Empire's royal palace. What? The Crown Prince has been. Juzi stared at the servant girl who was reporting back to her, shaking all over. The color had drained from her face completely. No, no. Juzi shouted hysterically as she charged crazily into her bedroom. Even a person as calm as she was fell apart when she discovered that her child had disappeared into thin air. She was very calm when the body Douluo was detonating his soul core and causing an apocalyptic calamity. She was still calm when she watched her husband, the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Shu Tianran, fall from the sacrificial pedestal. But when she found out that her flesh and blood had suddenly gone missing, how could she keep her cool? She couldn't bother with anchoring the overall situation as she ran back into her bedroom. Crazed. This child is. Who are Yuao stared at the heavenly son Douluo with wide eyes and open jaw. Even though he could already faintly guess this incredibly young infant's identity, he still found it a little hard to believe. A shameful look appeared on the heavenly son Douluo's face. We don't have any other choice. How can we send the Sun Moon Empire into disarray without doing this? It's a pity that we couldn't assassinate Shu Tianran. Otherwise, the Sun Moon Empire would undoubtedly descend into chaos, and the Douluo continent's 3 native empires would no longer be burdened. Who are Yuao was astounded. Tang Clan was equally astonished, because they never expected that the 3 empires' true goal of sending out 15 titled Douluo, with the price of the body Douluo's suicidal sacrifice, was this tiny baby. Every doubt in Who are Yuao's mind evaporated in this moment. He finally understood what this operation's true mission was. They weren't here for a single task. They were here for 2: assassinate Shu Tianran and kidnap his crown prince, Shu Yanan. The reason why the body Douluo was so willing to sacrifice himself probably had a lot to do with his body's condition. Otherwise, there was no reason for such a formidable individual to kill himself like that. He placed his own life on the line with the aim of assassinating Shu Tianran, and at the same time, he used his formidable strength to attract all the attention of Radiant City's core powers. He did that to create an opportunity for the heavenly son Douluo and the others. Just as the heavenly son Douluo had said, if Shu Tianran was assassinated and his son went missing, the Sun Moon Empire, which had just settled down, would descend into chaos. This situation was what the continent's 3 native empires wanted most, and this plan was made perfect with the body Douluo's sacrifice. But these were 15 titled Douluo. Some of the strongest individuals in the world actually made a move against an infant. Who are Yuao finally understood why the White Tiger Duke had a shameful look on his face before they left the Mingdong mountain range. They couldn't beat their enemies in a war, so they had to make a move on their children. No matter how cruel war was, such despicable methods filled his heart with contempt and disdain. This was especially so because the child that they had abducted wasn't just Shu Tianran's son, and he wasn't just the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince. He was also Juzi's son. The image of Juzi crumbling from grief almost immediately surfaced in Hua Yua's mind. Juzi was an orphan, and every single one of her family members had died horribly in a war. This had already caused her personality to twist slightly. Now that she had a child, her own flesh and blood, but her child was suddenly taken away from her. It wasn't hard to imagine the kind of blow that she would take. The heavenly son Douluo explained no further, and they quickly accelerated into the distance. Hua Yua pulled Tang Clan along, and they were still using imitation and spiritual detection to control the formation. But Hua Yua's mind felt very suffocated. The reason why the body Douluo chose to sacrifice himself instead of personally kidnapping this child was probably also because of guilt and shame. But how could they have such a plan? Hua Yua shut his eyes painfully. Tang Clan passed a message to his mind. You have to remain calm, Yuao. Let's leave this dangerous place first before anything else. Yes. Hua Yua nodded gently. He knew that there was nothing he could do, at least not right now, in front of 14 titled Douluo, and also when everyone's hearts were feeling heavy because of Dubusi's death. There was nothing he could say that would change things. Instead, his words would be counterproductive. They had to leave this place first, and he had to fulfill his promise to the body Douluo and take everyone back. Just 30 minutes after they departed, Radiant City exploded like a hornet's nest that had been impaled. Every single powerful soul master, every individual from the Holy Ghost Church, and every soldier from the army moved out at once in search of their crown prince. Shu Tianran had woken up inside Radiant City's royal palace. He was leaning against the bed, and his face was as pale as could be, but his eyes were full of hatred and resentment. He was very severely injured, and not only his body was hurt. What was more frightening was that his spirit had been heavily damaged, and his spiritual sea was almost shattered. If the body Douluo's final strike hadn't been blocked by those 2 barriers and his personal class 9 spiritual type defensive soul tool, he would probably have been completely annihilated by that tremendous pressure. But his nightmare returned once he woke up. His crown prince, Shu Yanan, had been kidnapped by unknown individuals. Shu Tianran had already murdered a bunch of people because of this. Even though his face was as white as paper, he couldn't hide the deep-seated murderousness in his eyes. Very good. Good, body Douluo. Very good, Holy Ghost Church. Shu Tianran gritted his teeth so hard that he almost shattered them. If the body Douluo hadn't sacrificed himself, how could he have attracted everyone's attention? If the Holy Ghost Church hadn't been selfish, how could those powerful kidnappers have succeeded? Shu Tianran was full of hate, and he wanted to kill everyone around him. He had just consolidated his throne, and this grand sacrificial ceremony was to be the true starting point of his glorious empire. But something like this had to happen. The grand sacrificial ceremony was forced to end, and so many citizens' lives were lost. This dealt a heavy blow to his reputation and influence, and more importantly, somebody had kidnapped his crown prince. Stop crying. Shu Tianran growled at Juzi, who was kneeling beneath him. He began to cough uncontrollably after his exclamation. Juzi's expression was possibly even paler than Shu Tianran's. Her voice was trembling as she said, Your Majesty, you have to save Yanan. You have to save him. He's only a year and 3 months old. Get up. Shu Tianran lowered his voice as he spoke. Juzi supported herself on the table beside her and struggled to stand up. Shu Tianran pointed at the bed in front of him, and Juzi went over to sit down. She looked like she had lost her spirit in this moment. Juzi, I understand what you're feeling, but right now, you have to understand what those people want by kidnapping Yanan. Of course Juzi understood, but the more she understood, the more dejected she felt. Her eyes were filled with a pleading expression as she said, Your Majesty, Yanan is our child. He's your crown prince. No matter what, you have to save him. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. A brutal look flashed across Shu Tianran's eyes. Save him? How am I to save him? His kidnappers are definitely the body Douluo's accomplices, and their goal is simple. They wish to stop me from restarting the war, stop me from trampling all over the continent's 3 empires. Do they really think that they can stop me like that? If I can have one son, then I can have another. Since they have taken away the crown prince, then I will sacrifice their lives to pay for his. Juzi, you have to gather yourself immediately. I can let you command the armies, and launch an invasion against them immediately. Use their blood to pay for our son. No, Juzi screamed hysterically, and her expression immediately became as white as paper. She had never expected Shu Tianran to say something like that after but a moment of thought. His words were undoubtedly a death sentence for her son. All that talk about how he could have a second one because he had a first. The crown prince wasn't his flesh and blood in the first place. He was just another tool. Of course, Shu Tianran wouldn't feel his heartache, but Yanan was her son. How could she not care about his safety? Shu Tianran's eyes grew fierce and sinister as he lifted his hand and grabbed Juzi by the neck. His insidious face brimmed with murderousness as he growled, "You dare to go against me?" Juzi's pretty face grew red and swollen as she found it hard to breathe, but her eyes were staring unblinkingly at Shu Tianran. She wasn't willing to give any quarter, and her entire body was quivering from anger. If she had felt any gratitude towards Shu Tianran before, then everything in her heart had vaporized in this moment. Had Shu Tianran not trained her into a tool when he brought her back all those years ago, she had saved his life afterwards, and in her heart, everything that she owed him had been returned. The reason why she was willing to do all kinds of things for him was because she wanted to get her revenge. But how could she not have any feelings at all when they had been together for so long? But Juzi truly understood how naive she was in this moment. How could any sentiment in the world fetter a man like that? All the yearning and feelings in her heart were but illusions, and she found herself so laughable that she had placed so much hope on a person like that. Shu Tianran felt his heart skip a beat as he stared into her eyes. An intense pain jolted his brain as he subconsciously released his grip, and Juzi fell down beside him. Shu Tianran supported his forehead with his hand as he shut his eyes in agony. "Forget it. Just settle this however you want. We'll try all we can to search for the Crown Prince, and we'll talk afterwards if that doesn't work out. You may go." Juzi got onto her knees, trembling. She lowered her head, and her voice sounded hoarse and began to shake as she said to Shu Tianran, "Thank you, Your Majesty." With that, she crawled out of Shu Tianran's bedroom on her knees. What Shu Tianran couldn't see was that Juzi's eyes were filled with resentment and ferocity, but she completely hid her murderousness and didn't show any of that at all. Long Xiaya stood in a pitch-black room without a single ray of light at all with his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with desolation. "You're hurt." A mildly hoarse and shrill voice could be heard, and a layer of dark red colors glowed inside the room. The death god Douluo, Yi Shui silently appeared not far behind him. "I haven't tasted the feeling of being hurt in a long time. I didn't expect old poison to be so brutal and intense, that he would choose such a path, that he would rather die for his country in front of millions instead of living for a few years more. Another from our generation has fallen." Yi Shui said plainly, "Why aren't you asking me why I refuse to help you? Don't you wish to interrogate me about that?" Long Xiaya shook his head. "Why should I interrogate you? Why should I ask when I know the answer? The truth is, I've always known who I am to you, but I'm afraid there might not be much left for me to give you." Yi Shui's voice suddenly turned cold. "I will not stop you if you want to leave. You can leave whenever you want to." Long Xiaya turned around and stared at Yi Shui's pale face. His voice immediately turned gentle, and he said, "Shui, I would have left a long time ago if I wanted to. Why would I wait to do that now? Since I made a promise back then that I would use the remainder of my life to pay you back for the sins that I have committed, then I will stay true to my word. The reason why I said there might not be much left to give is because every person's life will eventually come to an end. Dubusie's life has a limit, and so does mine." Yi Shui's body quivered as she arrived in front of Long Xiaya in a flash. Her fingers had blood-red fingernails, and she pressed her hand against Long Xiao's chest. Long Xiaya didn't move, nor did he attempt to stop her at all. He just let her plant her palm firmly on his chest. Yi Shui's expression slowly changed after a few moments. "You're so severely injured." Long Xiaya laughed, and his laughter was extremely warm. "I'm very happy to feel just a thread of your care and concern. Don't worry, I won't die for a while, and I still have to protect you for some time. No matter how you treat me, Shui, you'll always be the only woman that I've ever loved in my heart." Yi Shui's breathing suddenly became rushed, and her eyes turned ice-cold and evil as she stared insidiously at Long Xiaya. She spun around after a few moments and disappeared in a ray of red light. A dash of bitterness appeared on Long Xiao's face. There wasn't any sadness, only a trace of deep regret. He closed his eyes and said, "I have wanted to leave this world for a long time, but in the end, I still can't bear to lose you." Crisp crying sounds echoed throughout the skies, and the heavenly son Douluo, who was soaring through the air, suddenly paused. His expression also became a little awkward. "Mama, mama, mama." A childish voice rang out from the swaddling cloth, and this rank 97 titled Douluo's first reaction was to stop. The winds were strong, and he had been using his soul power to protect the bag of cloth in his bosom. He could feel some intense struggling coming from, and that came with vigorous bawling. This transcendent Douluo no longer knew what to do. The heavenly son Douluo stopped, and everyone else stopped one after another as they stared at the bag at his chest. The heavenly son Douluo relaxed his grip a little, and a tiny head poked out from within his arms. It was a beautiful little boy. His skin was as white as snow, and so tender that a drop of water could appear from a gentle squeeze. He had dark black hair, and his large eyes were also black. Even though he was crying so hard that mucus and tears were flowing all over his face, everybody who could see him couldn't help but give him praise. What a beautiful little child. The clothes he was wearing were made from excellent fabric, and it made his tender skin even more eye-catching. His crying sounds were extremely bright and loud. The heavenly son Douluo had only been thinking about completing his task. Furthermore, the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince had been very quiet, because he was in a deep sleep when he had taken him away. But the group of titled Douluo became a little helpless once he woke up. The youngest titled Douluo participating in this operation was at least 80 years old, excluding Hua Yuao and Tang Wutong. Even if they had family when they were younger, they wouldn't personally raise a child with their status and identities. "Oh, you're a girl. Can you coax him?" The heavenly son Douluo arrived in front of Tang Wutong as he spoke and passed the child to her. Tang Wutong was a little dumbfounded. She was a girl, but she was still young and unmarried. Even though she spent all her time with Hua Yuao, they had never done anything. She subconsciously took the little boy, and couldn't help but feel anxious and panicky because she didn't know how to hold him. Perhaps a female's glory began to show its power, because the little boy immediately stopped crying once he was in her arms. He blinked his enormous eyes as he stared at Tang Wutong, and stuck his index finger in his mouth. He seemed very curious. The heavenly son Douluo immediately heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the boy was no longer crying. "Auntie, milk." The little fellow suddenly spoke, and Tang Wutong's face flushed red. Furthermore, the little fellow didn't give her any chance at all as he stretched out his pudgy little hands to grab her shirt. There were still so many people around her, and Tang Wutong immediately screamed out loud. Hua Yuao was also startled, and he almost didn't hesitate as he took the child from Tang Wutong's embrace. Tang Wutong had that mysterious seal on her body. If this little child accidentally touched a place that he wasn't supposed to touch and triggered the seal, the retaliation produced wasn't something that a child who was barely more than a year old could take. The little boy didn't get what he wanted, and immediately began to bawl once more. Hua Yuao hadn't raised a child before either. He didn't know what to do, and reacted in a flurry as he hurriedly and gently patted the child's back in an attempt to placate him. Strangely, Hua Yuao patted the child's back just a few times before the kid stopped crying once more, and stared at Hua Yuao with those large black eyes of his. He was just so cute. Anybody would want to pinch and squeeze those cute and chubby cheeks of his. Anybody would even feel like giving him a kiss. Furthermore, for some reason, an inexplicable feeling flashed across Hua Yuao's heart when he stared into the baby's eyes. This is Juzi's child. Hua Yuao didn't get to think for long before the boy began to cry once more. The heavenly son Douluo frowned and said, "What should we do? He's too noisy. Why don't we knock him out?" Tang Wutong immediately frowned. "He's just a baby. How can you even say that? What if you hurt him? Is he hungry?" Hua Yuao thought about how the boy wanted to suckle her breast. He immediately said, "He should be hungry. But a small infant like this should want to drink milk." "Yes?" Everyone's eyes went to Tang Wutong once that was said. Tang Wutong was greatly embarrassed. "Why are all of you staring at me?" I don't have any." One of the titled Douluo, who was relatively more experienced, said, "This baby should be around a year and 3 months old. He should be able to eat normal food. Even though he can drink milk, that's not a necessity. We are quite some distance from Radiant City by now, so why don't we get him something to eat and let him calm down before anything else?" "Yes, it seems like we have no choice." The heavenly son Douluo felt a little humiliated when Tang Wutong chided him, but he thought about what he had said, and how he wanted to make a move against a tiny baby who was barely more than a year old, and he felt extremely awkward and guilty, so he immediately agreed. Everyone descended from the sky and found a relatively obscure hill. Nobody had any experience feeding a baby. Finally, Hua Yuao was the one who took that responsibility. No matter what, this boy was Juzi's son. He was very clear that there was nothing he could do or say to these titled Douluo for now, so he would have to wait for everyone to leave the Sun Moon Empire before anything else. He had to protect this baby, no matter matter what, because the child was innocent no matter what his identity was. Furthermore, he was Juzi's flesh and blood. There wasn't any delicious or sumptuous food out in the wilderness. Huo boiled some water. He softened some dry rations by simmering them in water before he gave them to the little boy. This little fellow wasn't picky with his food. He was eating very happily, and naturally stopped crying because he had something to eat. But his large black eyes were staring at Huo from the beginning to the end. Reality proved that this 1-year-old child wasn't just able to eat food for grown men. He could even walk, even though he didn't walk very stably. The little child who should be Shuyan began to walk by himself when Huo let him go. Furthermore, he wasn't uncomfortable with strangers, and he stopped crying once he was full. He was all smiles, and the way he smiled made all the title Douluo react with kind and amiable expressions. What a cute little baby. The little child returned in front of Huo after circling around, and seemed to stare at him very seriously before he exclaimed babyishly, "Daddy." Huo almost jumped to his feet in surprise. This child wasn't the only person to call him daddy. The snow lady had called him that before, but Huo realized to his surprise that he was only awkward and embarrassed when the snow lady called him that. But when this little fella called him that, he felt shaken. There seemed to be some kind of formless fate in the nether that tied them together when the little boy uttered that word. Huo possessed the eye of destiny, and he was extremely sensitive to it. He seemed to feel like his destiny was connected to this little fellow when the child called to him. He made his decision in that moment. Huo took the baby back into his arms as he said teasingly, "What's your name?" "Yanan." The baby replied very cleanly. Huo realized from interacting with the baby that Yanan was already very good with words, even if he could only say a few. The baby had to be very familiar with those words, otherwise he wouldn't be able to speak them. Huo subconsciously kissed the baby on his tender little cheeks. Yanan's chubby cheeks were soft and bouncy, and his smooth and tender skin was just like his mother's. He. The little child seemed to feel ticklish as he withdrew his neck and laughed. Huo laughed as well. This kid was just too cute. Tang came over and began to tease little Yanan with Huo. She giggled and said, "Seems like you're quite good with kids. Did you teach yourself?" Huo chuckled. "You might as well say that I'm naturally talented. I will be an excellent father when we have kids in the future." Tang blushed, but she didn't avoid his gentle gaze. Her eyes were brimming with happiness. A smiling face suddenly cut in between them in this moment, and two large eyes stared at Tang seriously. "Daddy, mine." Tang couldn't help but laugh. "Your daddy isn't here. He's..." She suddenly paused when she said those words, and dejection appeared in her eyes as she glanced at Huo. Huo's smile disappeared at the same time, and he gently caressed Yanan's head. Some more time passed as the little fellow fell asleep because he was full and tired from playing, and everyone took off once more. The titled Douluo didn't say anything, but anybody would realize upon closer inspection that the atmosphere between everyone was conspicuously more tense. They were flying far too quickly, and the Sun Moon Empire's territory was so wide. Those who were pursuing them couldn't catch up because there was no way they could lock onto their positions. Huo relied on his formidable spiritual detection as he successfully took everyone across the border's defenses once more. They returned to the Mingdo mountain range and directly descended towards the mountain range's main peak. The titled Douluo's expressions were a lot more relaxed when they returned. They were finally back, and even though their mission wasn't perfect, they had accomplished at least half of it. They had heavily injured the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Shu Tianran, and managed to capture the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince, Yanan. But at the same time, the body Douluo remained in the Sun Moon Empire forever, and would never return. The White Tiger Duke welcomed them personally. He stared at everyone's solemn expressions, and his eyes dimmed when he didn't see Dubusi. The White Tiger Duke turned to Huo when they arrived inside the commander's tent. "Tell me what happened, Yuao." Huo nodded. He was still carrying Yanan in his arms, and the little fellow was sleeping very soundly. He immediately recounted everything that he had seen on this mission in detail, except he didn't tell the White Tiger Duke about the body Douluo handing him the secrets of the body. The White Tiger Duke shut his eyes painfully after listening to his report. After a few moments, he said, "The body Douluo realized his wish. He had already told me that before everyone departed, he couldn't recover from his old injuries, and he wanted to give his full strength to assassinate Shu Tianran on this mission. Back then, I already felt like something was wrong, and it seems like he had planned this a long time ago." Everyone lowered their heads gloomily, especially those formidable individuals from the body sect. The body Douluo's death undoubtedly meant the body sect's fall from glory. In addition to the large masses of their elites who had perished in the war, the body sect probably wouldn't regain their strength even after a few hundred years. The White Tiger Duke finally trained his eyes on Yanan, who was still in Huo's arms. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. Capturing the crown prince wasn't his idea. He had been heroic and valiant his entire life, but now he was using a child to threaten the Sun Moon Empire. He wasn't willing at all, from the bottom of his heart, but the Sun Moon Empire was far too powerful, and if they didn't have a plan to counter them, the White Tiger Duke wasn't confident at all of defending his empire's territory when the Sun Moon Empire's enormous empire descended upon them like a thunderstorm. Huo turned to the White Tiger Duke with a calm look on his face. "What shall we do with the child, Duke? What are you planning to do with him?" The word he used was you, not us. Hesitation appeared in the White Tiger Duke's eyes as he said subconsciously, "What suggestions do you have, Yuao?" Huo said without hesitation, "War isn't a affair for men. It has nothing to do with children. No matter who he is, he's still a child. We are honorable men, so how can we use an infant to threaten our enemies? That's not honorable at all. Furthermore, with the Sun Moon Empire's emperor's personality, kidnapping the crown prince will lose its meaning, since he isn't dead. He can have one crown prince, so why can't he bear another?" Huo's words were very precise. If the body Douluo, Dubusi had assassinated Shu Tianran successfully, then the Douluo continent's free native empires wouldn't have to do anything if they captured the crown prince. The Sun Moon Empire would naturally descend into chaos because everyone would be fighting for control of the throne. The Sun Moon Empire wouldn't have a leader, while the ruler had no heir. Who wouldn't want to rule over such a powerful empire? But Shu Tianran was still alive, so the Sun Moon Empire couldn't truly be that chaotic. Kidnapping the crown prince under such circumstances perhaps wouldn't have its desired effect, unless Shu Tianran placed a lot of importance on that son of his, and was willing to pay a tremendous price for him. Otherwise, if he really did abandon the crown prince, then everything that everyone did would become meaningless. What you're saying is that capturing the crown prince is useless. The heavenly son Douluo's voice was suddenly a little higher than before. They went through so much to kidnap the crown prince, and even though Huo's words sounded virtuous, he had still touched a nerve. That was especially so for the other titled Douluo who were with the heavenly son Douluo in capturing the crown prince. Everyone showed displeased expressions. Huo shook his head and said, "I didn't mean to offend, but if I had known that our mission's target was a child, nothing would have convinced me to participate." The heavenly son Douluo stared at him coldly and said, "Child? This child's father is the one who commanded the Sun Moon Empire's army to sweep over the heavenly Soul Empire, and if that didn't happen, why would the body Douluo sacrifice himself? His sacrifice created the opportunity for us to kidnap the crown prince. You're so young, but your tongue is sharp, and yet you think you stand on the moral high ground. Do you think that's enough to save your country? So what if we do despicable things for our country?" Huo answered plainly. The reason why the body Douluo chose to attack the sacrificial platform instead of personally kidnapping this child was probably because he felt it was beneath his dignity. Otherwise, on the day of the ceremony, all of the Sun Moon Empire's high-level officials would be watching the sacrificial platform. Even without a diversion, what do you think the body Douluo's chances would have been if he had snuck into the royal palace to kidnap this child? With his strength. Aren't you guys aware? Everyone's faces changed once more as they heard his words. The titled Douluo's expressions became even blacker than before. The heavenly son Douluo turned to the White Tiger Duke and said, "Duke, Huo did contribute a lot to this operation, and he was a great help to us. Now that the mission has been completed, he can return to Shrek Academy. We should be the ones discussing what comes next. He's a junior, and he doesn't have to continue participating." The White Tiger Duke nodded and turned to Huo. "Yuao, the heavenly son Douluo is right. You have already helped us a lot on this mission. You should go back and rest, and return to the academy as quickly as possible. We'll deal with the rest." How could he not agree with what Huo said deep in his heart? But their enemy was near, and he could only choose to protect Huo as much as possible with so many titled Douluo in front of them. The White Tiger Duke walked in front of Huo and took Yanan from him as he spoke. Huo's expression was a little blank. He fixed his eyes on the White Tiger Duke, and when the Duke took the baby, Huo suddenly asked, "Duke, sir, if your son was the one who was kidnapped and your enemies wanted you to pay a price, would you do it?" The White Tiger Duke was momentarily stunned. He suddenly felt that Huo's gaze was a little blinding, but he still answered without hesitation, if my enemy's price was personal, then I would give my own life to save my child. But if my enemy's price was for me to betray my country, then I would avenge my son. Who are you? Suddenly laughed out loud and said, good, good, you will avenge your son. You live up to your name as a loyal and righteous duke. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Who are you? Pulled Tang tongue along as he laughed before he turned and left. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.